connected to my team and first began to tap into an energy that felt a little unfamiliar, and with that the message that came was that there are still energies out there that you don't know, you're not familiar with, both positive and negative. The one that I felt was rather positive, and there was something motherly about it. Now I see an old lady, like a hunched old lady. She's shriveled up. She seems to be a little lost. Almost like she lost some of her faculties. She's really old, and she might even have some light form of dementia or something like that, what psychologists would call that, at least. I'm shown how she was just searching through her pockets. She doesn't even know what she's looking for. And then there's a fly that just came by, and she just kind of forgot that she was searching and now focused on the fly. With some sort of a childlike demeanor and attitude about it. Almost like in this process of disintegration, something else had been restored for this woman. Something that pure and innocent that was lost perhaps at some point. She didn't have access to that aspect of herself, so she had to develop this condition because what this condition does, what some people refer to as dementia or Alzheimer, it's not just that it deactivates some mental faculties that are significant and important to organize our day-to-day living and navigate the world. But with that, it also cancels the egoic tendencies. So it's almost like the only way for people to no longer be under the pressures of the ego, because that's what the ego does. The ego becomes slowly and gradually throughout life this at times very demanding authority. As soon as you wake up, it demands food, and it demands entertainment, and all sorts of things, and it places a lot of pressure all the other parts of oneself, including the inner child. So when the ego is not in harmony with the inner child, and that happens very, very often, it happens for almost every human. The ego is going to become more and more like a tyrant. So, and that manifests, the tyranny of the ego manifests either through self-blame and beating oneself up, or through blaming others, or both. For some people, it can translate more into self-sabotage, self-blame, but other people become very tyrannical themselves, and very demanding and even cruel in their approach with those around them. Very impatient, unyielding, insensitive. And so that's where this unfolds for a long period of time, and it's almost like there's a part of you, like the soul knows that this is not headed the right direction, but it has to allow it all to play out. And then there's all this momentum and literally personal forces at stake that need to be allowed to unfold and to play out. But oftentimes it's all headed in the direction of self-destruction, self-destructive behavior, or destructive behavior. And there is a culminant point when that ego begins to feel helpless. So at some point it switches from being demanding and tyrannical to feeling helpless. And that switch can happen at any point in the journey. And in some cases it's a switch, but it's not that dramatic. There's just feelings of helplessness that coexist with feeling those demands and expectations of the ego. And in other cases, it's more dramatic. And when that helplessness sets in and begins to grow, that's where the ego actually begins to feel out of control. So the ego develops, it's almost like I see the ego running on a certain number of cylinders. So it starts off with maybe 3 cylinders, such as the cylinder of fear. So it's all emotions that are not in alignment with the true self, with love. And then there's emotions that are derivatives or derivates of fear. And so there's all these cylinders that develop in time, and hopelessness and helplessness are some of them too. And as it becomes the last one, what I'm getting is that one of the last cylinders to develop is well, no, not the last, but there's one of them is fear of losing control. So there's all these different fears that the ego develops, and they are portrayed as these cylinders that the ego runs on. And one of those cylinders is fear of losing control. So at some point later on in life, that becomes the main. Like, it could be existing all along, but at some point it becomes the main cylinder because the body is more helpless. So there is helplessness and hopelessness experienced on more and more levels, especially when things don't go our way. And that all of that contributes to this cylinder of losing control, fear of losing control becoming stronger. So then it's really from this aspect of the ego that the Alzheimer is manifested. But it's kind of like coming back full circle from the soul's perspective, because the soul is observing this unfolding, and it, like I said, it needs to allow it all to play out. But that's when the soul sort of gets a new chance at reconnecting when the condition of dementia or Alzheimer is being manifested and control is being lost. So that means that the ego is no longer in touch with the apparatus that's incarnated here in this life and dimension. So the apparatus sometimes is completely disconnected from the ego. It's disconnected from life as well, but also from the ego. And so that's when the apparatus has, in a way, a second chance at beginning to reconnect with the soul here towards the end of life. And it's actually, so for people, for those who care for someone with dementia, it looks as though, I mean, it looks like a very sad scene, like they no longer recognize the people around them. But part of the reason why that is because they are being sucked back into their inner world, which they had lost touch with, as the ego and the demands of the ego and of the demands of the life that the ego has created around them pull them out of. So at a soul level, actually, it is a positive thing that happens for them as they're exiting, because although they're exiting in less touch or connection with the environment that they participated in this life, they will be more in touch with that inner world. So it's not necessarily an ideal or desirable state, but it's a consequence of that cycle that was never stopped. So it's for those who do not become aware, and through that awareness to intervene and to stop and to reverse the course of things and reverse the course of the ego. And yeah, so that's what came through today. I feel like this channeling is complete.